Hi, I'm Eric Kelly from KellyPlanet.com. This is a close look at Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 4, Episode 11, Data's Day.
Record entry for transmission to Commander Bruce Maddox, Cybernetics Division, Daystrom Institute. In response to your request, this correspondence will include a complete record of my activities during a normal day.
Yeah, so Data is making a diary of an entire day to send to Bruce Maddox from Measure of a Man. If that sounds like an odd idea for an episode, I'm with you. It's shift change to day shift, and Riker is a bit early. This is because O'Brien is getting married and Data is giving the bride away for some reason, so he can have more time to get ready. Okay. Apparently, overnight, somebody went into labor, the USS Zhukov is en route, and they're bringing Vulcan Ambassador T'Pel. I think Riker was 15 minutes early, so he could say this.
I have the bridge.
Aye, sir. Begin day watch.
Initially, Commander Maddox, I found it difficult to maintain friendships, since human emotions are often puzzling to me.
Yeah, Data does this narration thing like the whole time. That's Keiko Ishikawa, played by Rosalind Chow, who is not Japanese at all. And guess what? She's decided to call the whole thing off. Why? She says it's the right thing to do. She has cold feet, as they say.
He'll probably be just as relieved as I am. You introduced us to each other. You mean a lot to both of us. I would really appreciate it if you would talk to Miles for me.
If you wish.
First of all, O'Brien, nor any other guy, would be happy about this. Second, this is the first time we ever see this character, so all this history with Data happened off-screen. So 10 Forward is getting all decked out for the wedding, and there's Chief O'Brien and Geordi, and Data says, hey, I've got some good news.
She has canceled the wedding. She what?
Cancel the wedding? Today? Without even a word? Of all the childish, selfish, irresponsible things to do.
Indeed. Geordi says, maybe next time I should deliver the good news. Data's still doing his diary thing, and he adds that today is the 1,550th day since the Enterprise was commissioned, and a whole bunch of other stuff that has nothing to do with the plot. So, hey, there's April Grace. Let's get to Ambassador T'Pel. There she is, and she just wants to see the captain.
Since I am not affected by emotional considerations, I am closer to being Vulcan than human. However, while their devotion to logic does have a certain appeal, I find their stark philosophy to be somewhat limited.
This is the first time we see the barbershop, and that's a Bolian, but not Mr. Mott. His name is Vasal. We find out here that Data considers Geordi his best friend, and that O'Brien probably understands that Keiko really doesn't want to call off the marriage, even though that's what she said.
She's just getting cold feet.
Cold feet? So, you believe the marriage will still proceed?
Trust me, they're gonna get married.
Okay, this is the first time we see the Replicator Center, which I think is kind of weird because everyone has one of these in their quarters. You may say, well, those are for food, and I say, well, what's the difference? Anyway, Data's talking to himself about how he and Worf are similar as orphans rescued by Starfleet, and this came up in the episode with the kid from RoboCop 2.
Have you ever been an actual participant in a human wedding?
No. Human bonding rituals often involve a great deal of talking and dancing and crying.
Worf is describing this episode. On the bridge, the captain wants Data to project possible Romulan deployments along the neutral zone because T'Pel says so, and that's where they're headed. Well, that was quick. Data says the Romulans are positioned for confrontation to test the Federation, and he knows this because they don't bother to cloak, I guess. But they have to go on with their mission because T'Pel says so, and we don't know what that mission is yet. This is the first time we see Data's cat, who is male until the script needs him to have kittens in Season 7. The Chief stops by to ask Data to talk to Keiko because Troy already tried, and she won't even speak to him.
I knew what I was doing. It's my decision.
However, you may have acted with undue haste, and in doing so, unintentionally hurt Chief O'Brien's feelings.
I thought you were my friend.
I am your friend.
Then leave me alone.
Now, I know Keiko turns out to be a great wife, but right now it looks like O'Brien dodged a bullet. Data goes to see Counselor Troy about all this, and apparently he has been trying to calculate variables necessary for a successful marriage, and she's like, yeah, good luck with that. There's a lot of talking, but fortunately T'Pel calls Data to her quarters.
I require information on this ship's defense and navigational systems.
I must report any inquiry regarding restricted information to the captain.
I was curious as to your security safeguards. They appear to be adequate. Cancel the request.
Yeah, something's up with her. Oh yeah, remember Worf mentioned dancing at human weddings, so we have to do a dancing scene. Gates McFadden's actually quite an accomplished dancer and choreographer, and she did this all herself.
Try this.
Yeah, she choreographed this whole scene, and actually Brent Spiner did a lot himself, too. Seems pretty good to me.
I'd say you've picked up the basics.
Thank you, Doctor. I am now prepared to dance at the wedding.
Wedding?
Keiko's wedding.
Data, you never told me this was for the wedding.
So this dancing stuff keeps on going, and she teaches him a more appropriate technique.
You're holding me too tight.
This is a very complex set of variables to coordinate, Doctor.
You are doing fine. Now, smile. Act like you're enjoying yourself.
Bev has to go help that lady that went into labor the night before, and I guess we're not done dancing yet. Back on the bridge, they've detected a Romulan warbird, and Picard has Worf hail them. They send a text message back about heading to some other coordinates, so they do at Warp 4, which just takes them closer to the warbird, so whatever. T'Pel hails the Romulans. That's Admiral Mendak, and we see that dude again as Tokoth on Deep Space Nine, and he'll also be on Voyager. Anyway, there must be a secret prearranged thing that T'Pel is supposed to be negotiating something with the Romulans, and she's supposed to beam over to their ship. Picard says, well, you know, they could come over here, but she says, no, do what I say.
Transporter activated. Captain.
Transporter emergency. I'm losing your signal. I'm sorry, sir. I wasn't able to retrieve the signal. The ambassador's dead.
Oh, no. I still have like 13 more minutes to get through this. O'Brien tells Picard this shouldn't have happened, and Data agrees. This circumstance has never occurred on a Federation ship, ever. Picard wants all the transporters pulled apart and analyzed, and Geordi's like, okay. And then the doc says there's organic residue left on the pad, but not enough for an autopsy. Mendak's like, where's T'Pel? And Picard says, oh, she died in a transporter accident. And Mendak accuses Picard of killing her on purpose to sabotage the negotiations, because, you know, that sounds like Starfleet.
Starfleet opposes normalization of relations with the Romulan Empire, and so you are ordered to create an accident. I suggest we both leave the neutral zone before there is another accident.
The Enterprise heads back to Federation space, and Picard puts Data in charge of figuring out what happened to T'Pel. Data is talking to himself again and making comparisons to Sherlock Holmes, and yeah, we saw that exact same transporter test footage before. Time to see the doc, and she hasn't bothered to compare the DNA from that organic sample to T'Pel's trace pattern because she says it's not SOP.
I could be chasing an untamed ornithoid without cause.
A wild goose chase? There's a slight discrepancy in the base pair sequence.
Can you postulate an explanation for the discrepancy?
These aren't the remains of the ambassador.
Yeah, probably not. So we know that stuff wasn't T'Pel, and Data explains that a second transporter beam was used and it came from the Devros, the warbird. Geordi says, yeah, those Romulans use transporter stuff similar to ours.
Are you saying they beamed the ambassador off our own pad?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Worf, where is the Devros now?
The ship is still in the neutral zone.
Heading for home.
Red alert. All hands stand to battle stations.
There's Mendak, and he's like, what are you doing here? Picard says, ha, we know you took our ambassador captive, and Mendak's like, I can assure you that there's no captives over here. Wink, wink. Oh, yeah, we know about the transporter thing, and then, there's another warbird. So Mendak says, I suggest you go home, but of course, Picard won't leave without T'Pel.
I am not ready to start a war today.
T'Pel.
Sub-Commander Selak, actually.
A spy.
A patriot, Captain.
Yeah, somehow the Romulans got a sleeper agent to serve like 100 years, or at least long enough to be implicitly trusted as ambassador in the Federation without being detected, which I find quite a stretch, but here we are. So she's a Romulan, and the Enterprise is outnumbered, so the only reasonable thing to do is go back, and we have a wedding coming up after all. I forgot to mention this is the first time we get to see the Arboretum, and there's Captain Unreasonable, and Data is trying to apologize for offending her.
You haven't offended me. Come here. I have the most beautiful carnation for the father of the bride. You know, don't be nervous.
I am not nervous. I am confused.
Yeah, I'm confused too, Data. And I'm not an android. We go right to the ceremony, and it's very nice. I assume this is somewhat accurate, but I have no idea what the Japanese customs are. Captain Picard is officiating and does this pretty much like Kirk did in TOS. It is mentioned about how sailing ship captains had this duty long ago, and I'm sure you've probably heard this before, but that wasn't nearly as common as a thing as movies would have you believe.
To unite. You, Keiko Ishikawa, and you, Miles Edward O'Brien.
There are still many human emotions I do not fully comprehend, but I am not mystified by the desire to be loved.
Congrats to the O'Briens. Data gets to try out his new dancing skills. I guess the script thought it was important to tie up that newborn baby thread, so there he is. Oh, the point of this is that he was being born while the Romulans were being a threat, but they really weren't, and straight up let the Enterprise go. Worf has the bridge, and that's pretty rare. He's going through the change of watch rundown, and this came from Ron Moore's rewrite, which I'll talk about in a minute.
Begin night watch. Until then, Commander Maddox, I will continue learning, changing, growing, and trying to become more than what I am.
Where do I start? We just had a Troy episode, so this is a Data episode that introduces Keiko, who will become a recurring character, and even more so on Deep Space Nine. It seems that the writers really wanted to have a wedding, but don't ask me why. The problem with that would be they can't use a main character or a throwaway character, so this is why O'Brien got the job. A large part of this show is told by literal narrative voiceover, so it's like having captain's logs like all the time. I wasn't a fan of this approach, and they really don't use it again until Cisco, as far as I can remember. As I mentioned, the original script was completely rewritten by Ron Moore, and according to production notes, he got the change of watch lighting thing from something Gene Roddenberry had written. I'm pretty sure submarines do that, so the submariners have some sense of night and day. It's not something Roddenberry invented. Moore usually does some pretty great stuff. I'm not picking on him. Like the last episode, I skipped this one when I binge watch. This was a weird way to do a show, and I don't know why they went this route. The whole part with T'Pel was only there because Rick Berman knew this story would be even more boring without it. I just think this was a little weak, and I'm going to go 2 deltas out of 5. Let me know how you feel about that. If you like that video, thank you. Maybe make a comment and subscribe if you want to. There's more Star Trek videos and other related content on my website. Check it out at kellyplanet.com. I'm Eric Kelly. Live long and prosper.